I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, sex, relationships, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and I hope everybody's hanging in there. I myself have had a rough couple weeks, but this last week has been a doozy. And it's tough. There's a lot of things happening that can impact us in our day-to-day. So I really hope that everybody is taking care of themselves. This episode is supposed to drop in about 3 hours, and I am recording the intro now, which gives you a sense of my life this week. It's been tough. And all the things that are happening in the world don't help. What is happening in Afghanistan is really difficult to observe. I've followed a few new social media accounts of people who are there just to get more information, more accurate information. And it's really difficult to see just the way that people are being treated. And I'm, reading more about the history of Afghanistan and the Taliban. I knew some of it, of course, from the early 2000s, but I've been learning more, and it's really difficult and disheartening to observe. So my heart goes out to everybody who is being impacted, and it sucks to feel so powerless in this situation. And that, applies to what's happening here on the home front. There are COVID cases rising. There are people who are refusing to get vaccinated. Some people who have spoken out about not getting vaccinated have died. And it sucks. It sucks that they didn't get vaccinated. It sucks that they got sick. It sucks that they're spreading misinformation. A lot of it just really sucks. And I get the sense that we're going to be moving into another lockdown quarantine period coming up here soon. So I'm kind of bracing myself emotionally for that. And I know, a lot of the time that I talk about more interpersonal things or self-improvement, sex, relationships, self-love, what you can do for anxiety, how you can self-improve. But I do think it is important to shift the focus externally a lot of the time because it's important. And also, what affects us externally, what happens externally is going to impact us in our internal lives. So it's important to talk about. It's important to, not just be in our own worlds, which I am absolutely guilty of doing sometimes. I think we all are. And to, take a look at what's happening around us, because it can sometimes be really, really beautiful and great, and you're missing out on it, or sometimes it's really bad and we need to stand witness to it and help if we can. So that's kind of where I'm at emotionally this week, and where I think a lot of people are just exhausted, I guess, is the best place. But that leads me to talk about this article that I found. It was one of those pocket articles that pop up when you open your browser. And it's by Scott Young, and it's called Some Things That Have Helped Me to Worry Less. I will put it in the episode notes. And I'm not going to go over, every detail, because I do think that you should read the article. It's chock full of good information. And also I am exhausted. But yeah, it's really great. I totally recommend it. It talks about when you have a bad thought, when you have a worrying thought, is it yours or is it just passing? What are you owning, and what can you kind of let go in the wind? It talks about figuring out what your anxieties are and handling the things that you can control and letting go of the ones that you can't. And a few other things that I think are really good. And maybe they seem, I find for me that when I read articles like this, it seems maybe self-explanatory, like, oh, duh, well, yeah, I knew that. But when you're worried, it's really hard to remember these really basic things. Your body goes into a response place where you just are freaking out. And so when you read something like this, it's like, oh, yes, right, grounding. Okay, got it. Another thing that I've been doing is doing a daily meditation every day this week using my Insight Timer app. I absolutely recommend that. It's a great app full of different meditations for different purposes, of varying lengths with different people leading the meditation. So highly recommend that as well. Those are two things that kind of really helped this week. In addition, I've had a few really vulnerable conversations with my boyfriend. So if you need help, as always, ask for it. And talk to the people that you love, because there's a lot happening right now and we all need to take care of each other. Today, my conversation is with Dana, a life coach and founder of Inner World Movement. And she's a really incredible guest. We talk about, it's probably the right episode for this moment, actually. We talk about emotional education, and you'll discover more about what that is. We talk about how to change thought patterns. She walks me through the empowerment cycle, which I'm actually going to post a graphic of on Instagram, Facebook, just so you can see what those actual steps are. It's another really helpful tool of looking at a situation and figuring out, what you want to take from that and what you can let go. And then we end up talking about how all these things can impact your sexual life and your relationship. So we covered all. I do want to note really quickly that Dana and I do discuss her sexual assault, her sexual abuse. And yeah, it's just something to be aware of. We don't go into any detail, but it does come up. It's part of her story. And, she is a very empathetic interviewee, so it could be tough to listen to. She's a great listener and of course a very good storyteller because of that. But yeah, just a note that if that's a sensitive topic, just be aware going forward that will come up in passing, and if you want to skip it all together, that's okay too. But just so you know, just a little content warning, we do talk briefly about her sexual abuse, assault, and how it has impacted her. All right. I think that is it. I, again, hope everybody takes care of themselves. Do what you need to do. And I'll talk to you all next week. I'm going to cut to a quick commercial break and then enjoy my conversation with Dana.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of Delinquent Comics, an actual play podcast in the game world of Masks, a new generation. Join our heroes as they struggle to build a team and save the city. Can Titan escape the shadow of his mentor burnout? Is Soul's overwhelming power too dangerous to control? Will Muse discover her past? And how does White Knight stomach all those strange snacks? Listen to Delinquent Comics to find out at allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. New issues become available to all citizens every other Monday.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I am here today with my guest, Dana. Dana, how are you?
Hi, Rachel. I am so excited today. I've been really looking forward to our conversation.
Me too. Yeah, I did a little bit of internet stalking, and I just love talking to so many different types of people, and I'm really interested to talk to you about what we're going to talk about today. So
great.
Let's start with you telling me a little bit about you, who you are, what you do, and how did you get into what you're doing?
Yeah. So who I'm Dana Parker, and I am a life coach, a certified life coach, hypnotherapist, and Reiki master. And so I combine a lot of different tools to basically help people better their lives, to really step into waking up and living the life they were born to love. I think that so many people, the area that I love to talk about most is emotional education. I think that our world, emotions are part of the human experience. Every single one of us experiences them. I would say the majority of people don't know what to do with those emotions, so they suppress them, they hold them down, and until they burst out in ways that are actually very, very unhealthy. And
Oh,
so
definitely.
that's one of those things that I feel so strongly about, raising awareness about emotions and why they're here, how they teach us, what we can learn from them, how we can learn about ourselves from them. And then I really believe in when you empower somebody with those kinds of tools, there becomes an emotional resiliency, the ability to bounce back quickly after really hard things. Every single one of us will go through something hard in our lifetime, period. I don't think anyone escapes hard things. And so the emotional resiliency, I just think it's vital to navigating life with success. So how I got into this work, such a fascinating story, a series of very serendipitous or God-driven events, however you want to see it. Um, and I, at 23, I had a secret I was keeping. I had kept for many, many years. I experienced childhood sexual abuse, and I stopped it when it happened for a period of about 6 years, and I stopped it. And then I didn't tell a single person until I was 23. And at 23, I had two little boys, and I was married, and it became quite an issue that I had no clue would become an issue. I had no clue the lack of addressing that the sexual abuse would affect me and have such a compound effect in my life. And so I was experiencing a lot of flashbacks, anxiety, depression. I spent a lot of time emotionally eating and numbing, watching Netflix. And I knew that there was something more to my life. I knew that I was meant for something greater and bigger, and I couldn't figure out how to get there. I felt like a mess. When I started talking about it, it's almost like this dam of emotions just broke open, and I started riding the roller coaster of emotions because I didn't know that I was the one driving, and I could decide. I just felt like my emotions were the one driving me. And so it really put me into this space where I knew I needed support. I knew I needed help. And I got into a little bit of therapy, and wasn't experiencing the kind of results that I was wanting. And I'm not saying that's true for everyone. It was just for me
Sure.
at the time. And because I think therapy has such a beautiful and important place for so many of us.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
but personal development, I went to this class, and I started learning about emotions, and I started learning about these ideas, these limiting beliefs that we carry, that we make up stories in our head to make meaning of our experiences, that they mean something about us, and how to challenge those and change those. And over the years, it lit a fire in me. I felt empowered. I felt excited. I felt like I didn't have to be defined by the sexual abuse anymore. And it started this journey. And it did take several years to unravel all of that. But on the journey, the funnest part is, as I was learning, I just wanted to teach. So I got to teach and go on my own healing journey all along the way. And I think it helped me integrate a lot more of the tools on a real personal level, which made me more passionate to share with people. So that's kind of the short version of how I got into this work, and a little bit about me.
Yeah, that's quite a story, and I'm so sorry that you went through that and at such a young age, but I'm also glad that you were so resilient and have
Yes.
made such a great life for yourself. It's
Yes,
always incredible to
absolutely.
hear.
Yeah, and I do think it's so important to share, because I haven't really met a lot of people who've reached this point. I experienced that sexual abuse for years, and I spent a lot of time working on myself and dedicating my time to healing. And I can say I honestly don't experience the effects of sexual abuse anymore in my life and in sexuality. And it's not a daily occurrence. It's not something that's very regularly shows up in my life, and that I've moved on. And so I really want to share that hope, because I know throughout my journey, there are times where I'm like, am I ever going to get over this? Is this ever going to be something that will just be something of the past that I feel healing from? And I can say now, because of the journey that I've walked and my dedication, that I have. And if I can do it, anyone can do it.
That's incredible. Yeah. I mean, sometimes I think that sexual assault is something that, can be recurring. Sometimes I think that it's something that, and it's something that you carry with you.
Yes.
But that's incredible that there's no, you've recovered from PTSD and, not having flashbacks anymore. That's really, really, really awesome.
Yeah.
Well, so you have a website, and I love the tagline on your website.
Thank you.
It reads, "Inner world healing for outer world results," which I love. And I just want you to talk to me a little bit about what that means, what it means to you, and how you approach that when working with people.
Yeah. What's so fascinating about our world is we really base worth off of, we can base our worth often, and our value and our judgments of if we're doing a good job in life based off things we do. We define ourselves by results. And oftentimes, we'll see this in the health world often, where if people want different results health-wise, they'll focus on all their actions, right? Eating right, drinking right, going to the gym, working out, those things to experience the results they want. Now, that's important. It's a really important part, and it's a key part of getting results. But what people often miss out on is our results are based on our actions, but those actions, what precedes that is a thought paired with an emotion. Mm-hmm. Thoughts and emotions are driven by core root beliefs we have about ourselves, beliefs we took on from childhood. We all are functioning off of these stories we made up in our childhood, made meaning of, and functioning in our life based on that. And can I give you an example?
Absolutely, please.
So growing up for me, I struggled in school with time tests or being put on the spot, like a spelling bee. And I struggled a lot. I actually I would say way more than half the time, if the test was timed, I would get a super low score and wouldn't pass. Or a spelling bee, I knew how to spell the words, but standing up in front of everyone, being put on the spot, there's so much pressure. Yeah. And so over time, I actually started to and I got made fun of by other kids because I disdained for recess, because I didn't get a high enough score, things like that. And over time, those impactful experiences as a child, I'm not a logical thinking adult. I'm a child. And so the meaning I made of those moments was, I'm stupid. And interestingly enough, those ideas, as individuals, we do one of two things. We choose in and we go into give up mode, which for I'm stupid, that was more common for me. I started as an adult, I started feeling like I was stupid. I would hold back in intellectual conversations, or when I made mistakes, especially financial mistakes, those were big voices that would come up. I'm stupid. I'm an idiot. Those kinds of things. The other flip side that can happen is overcompensation. Overcompensation, those are people where you meet where they're like the know-it-alls, and they have to know it all, and they refuse to believe that they have anything wrong. Those are people that actually struggle with I'm stupid, or the foundation of something like that, and they're just in overcompensation. And so we'll take both ends of the spectrum and we'll live those out in our lives, not even knowing. We don't even know what's driving that because we're not aware. And so we just know we have this intense need to feel intelligent or to feel smart enough, And so I lived that out. And so what the inner world healing for outer world results is when you go in and you identify, what are my root drivers for these habits in my life? What's the idea I'm carrying about myself? I'm carrying about myself, meaning I'm not good enough. I'm stupid. I'm not worthy. I'm unlovable. Those are some really foundational things that a lot of us really are carrying without even knowing, which those ideas then create emotions and thoughts, then create
And
actions,
reactions
then
too.
create
Yeah.
results.
Right.
Yes, exactly. And so in the health world, for a great example, you see people yo-yo all the time because they're not getting into the emotions. They're not getting into the ideas they're carrying about their bodies or about food or about, the emotional aspects of eating, things like that. They're just focusing on actions and results. And so if you can get into the driver of the actions, you actually will have more lasting change and more credible, consistent results outside if you will deal with the emotional part of it. It's so powerful. And I'm speaking this not from a place of I'm regurgitating information I've learned. No, I've lived this. I've seen this. I've coached thousands of clients. And it's so powerful what can happen when you can let go of those stories.
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny. I've actually been thinking a lot about this lately. I've always said, I've been going to therapy since I was really, really little. And so I think from a very young age, I learned how to identify the why between my feelings and my actions, which I think is so powerful. Um, and, I was bullied in middle school. Middle school girls can be really awful.
Yeah.
And I've carried that with me. And it's still, I have to keep myself in check all the time in my female friendships now, because my female friends are great. They're absolutely wonderful people. And I know that even if we disagree or, we get into an argument, it's not going to mean the end of a friendship. But because that's the story that I was told and that I've told myself, I really have to fight my impulses or my reactions.
Yes.
So it's definitely something that I've been thinking a lot about lately.
Yeah. And that takes so much energy and effort and work and understanding at first to really get it down. And then once you have it down, it becomes a little bit more easy, a little bit more routine.
Yeah.
But it does. And that's why I see such power in coaching and therapy and having somebody like that in your life to help you challenge those things, because every single person experiences that I call it the itty bitty shitty committee, the inner voices that everyone experiences those at one time or another.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's, I guess that's a good way to kind of lead into what are the differences between coaching and therapy? Because in both cases, you're not going to have the person with you all the time.
Right.
But I mean, I kind of know the difference. I actually considered getting a life coach certificate at one point. But just kind of tell me about the differences. Tell our listeners.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say that I'm an expert on life coaching and therapy, because there is so many amazing therapies out there. There are so many amazing things you can do. There are so many different types of life coaches. So really, I would say, if you're considering life coaching therapy, first start with, what are you looking to experience? What are you wanting? What kind of healing are you looking to have? And then from there, you follow your heart. My healing journey was so unique to me. When I met someone who was a healer or a therapist, and it felt right to work with them, I would until it felt complete. And so I would say that for anyone listening that's like, do I choose a life coach? Do I choose a therapist? What's the difference? Well, you decide, you do your research on those things. I would say, there are amazing opportunities in life coaching. Life coaching, it's not a regulated industry. So do your research, do your due diligence, research the person you're thinking about working with. But life coaching for me, what I found in life coaching is a lot of practical application throughout my week. That's one of the things that I love to bring to the table is okay, we've had this amazing discussion. We've done this amazing emotional work. Now it's time to take action and implement and integrate the things you just learned about. And so here's what I'm going to suggest for the week. Here's your focuses to really implement the things for this week. And for me, that was the difference when I personally went to therapy, and I know that this isn't true for all therapy because I don't want a blanket statement therapy. When I went to therapy, I talked it out, and I didn't feel like there was movement forward for myself in a lot of ways. I got some cool tools along the way, but there was something about the consistent, here's what to do now. Okay, so now you've experienced this, this is what you want to choose into. Here's what you do with that. That kind of work for me, I love that. I love the implementation. And I think it's such an empowered part of, it's like people say knowledge is power. Well, I actually think the power comes when it's applied. Applied knowledge is where the power is. Because I know so many people that read tons of self-help books and have been to therapy for years. They just haven't learned how to implement it, how to actually apply it. And so there's a gap of understanding and real healing with real results. So I don't know if that really answers the question but just kind of to differentiate the two. But it's not, I don't want a blanket statement life coaching or blanket statement therapy because there's such a spectrum, of types of therapy.
Ultimately, I think that it's going to depend on the person that you're working with, right? Like, it's like you said, if this person feels right, then like it feels right. I know that, I've had to do a little bit of like therapist dating in my past. To try to find like a good fit.
Me too.
So it takes work, and for anybody out there who may be struggling with finding a therapist or, a coach that works for you, keep trying. There is somebody out there who's a fit. Well, I guess in terms of implementing these, I guess I don't want to call them like homework assignments because that makes it sound less fun. And
I call them like
super fun.
Like movement, positive movement, your focuses or your momentum activities is another thing you could do. Like action steps
between that gap. So you're talking about this gap between, knowledge and then application. That has always been the biggest thing for me where like I'm always like, how do you change your thinking? Like, what are the steps that you take to change your thinking?
Yeah, that's such a great question. And, right off the top of my head, I would say the very first step is awareness of what you're thinking. I remember when I first started into this world and really changing my thinking, I used to track my negative thoughts throughout the week, because so many of us don't actually know what's going on in our heads. We don't know what the voices even sound like. We just know that we often get these feelings of doom, anxiety, fear, doubt. Those are very surface emotions. When I ask somebody, how are you feeling? And they're like, fear. I'm like, well, you could sit in the fear, or you could get lovingly curious and ask questions. And let's go deeper. Let's get lovingly curious and ask questions that will take you to a place where what's driving that fear. So then you can address that, and then you can release the fear. And so awareness is such a huge part. And part of that is even learning the language of emotions, learning the language of those things. And again, this is why having somebody that's more neutral outside of the emotion to help you can be so powerful. I'm 12 years in. I've invested personally over $100,000 in my own growth and personal development and coaching for me and I still pay a coach. I still have a coaching meeting with every month because I know that there's so much value in having somebody outside of me to help me see things and ask questions.
Definitely.
So that loving curiosity, when you're feeling fear or anxiety, fear of what? That's what I always go into next. Fear of what? That's the next step. So awareness of what you're feeling, identify it, and then get into it. What is it? And then from there, challenging those things. And what was so fascinating when I used to track what my negative thoughts were in the day, I started to see a pattern. a pattern of similar ideas. And that's when I became very aware. One of the biggest ideas that showed up is I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough was so big in my life and so profound in the daily, day to day, that if I made a mistake, it was like, I'm not good enough.
Sure.
And what that did is it empowered me to know what I'm not good enough feels like, what the main trigger experiences outside of me would be. And so I became empowered and aware of when I started feeling those emotions. I was like, oh, this is I'm not good enough. That's not accurate. That's not true. I'm more than enough. Taking a deep breath, putting my hand on my heart, and reminding myself to just take some deep breaths, one step at a time. You're more than enough, Dana. You're doing great. I'm so proud of you. And then move forward in a different energy. And that's a very simplified version, I would say. But one of the very first steps to really retraining. And that's actually something I did with the sexual abuse that was so impactful, because emotions rewire the brain. Powerful emotions rewire the brain. So when I'd have flashbacks, then this is just me personally. I'm not saying this is going to work for everyone or that everyone should do this. Definitely, if you're having serious flashbacks or things like that, consult a therapist, go where you feel drawn to. But for me, what began to happen is I started challenging those things, that I'm not the thoughts I think or emotions I feel. They're just my greatest teachers. They're showing me things about me, the things that are calling for love and healing. That sexual abuse was calling for love and healing, calling for my love, my compassion, my acceptance that it actually did happen, and validation for the pains. And so as I did that, as those emotions would come up and I'd take deep breaths, place my hand on my heart, or sometimes I'd place it on my cheeks, that those things actually engage your parasympathetic nervous system, right, which helps calm the body. And as I did that, and I would talk myself through it, you're so wonderful. That was so hard. I'm so proud of you for still being here after that. Yes, that was a really hard experience. It started to shift things for me, because what I was doing is using the emotions of compassion and kindness for those hurts. And what it did, now what I experienced because I still have those images of what happened. I still can see that in my mind, those things, but they now are filled with compassion. Mm-hmm. It's not an anxiety. It's not an intense, oh no, I don't want to experience that again. And fear. It's yeah, that happened and it's okay. And I'm okay. And so it's a totally different experience. And it's such a beautiful way to rewire the brain. If you can cultivate those powerful, positive emotions and then send it or visualize sending it, or whatever it is that's going to work for you, really filling yourself up and validating yourself like you would, a little child that's hurt, those kinds of things, that rewires to those images. Now those images are now in my brain. There's a wire that just says compassion, compassion.
Right.
And that's one of the biggest steps, I would say.
That's so important, that the inner child work. I know, because we're all so hard on ourselves, and
yes,
I always say talk to yourself the way that you would a friend, because the way that you talk to yourself can be really, really mean, but you wouldn't talk to one of your friends that way.
Exactly. And the interesting thing is there's different areas. One of the areas I struggle with still sometimes is the area of my body. And because I'm a 6-foot woman and I carry a little bit of extra weight, and I've noticed that. So over the years, even though I've done this, there's certain areas that I'm really good at this, and there's other areas that I could use improvement. And I think that's something to bring awareness to is, hey, what are the areas that you could use more of that in?
Sure. No, absolutely.
Yeah. Yes.
Well, walk me through, you have a little handy dandy chart on the site about
Yeah.
the empowerment cycle, which kind of relates into like what we're
Yes.
talking about now. So walk me through
Exactly.
the different steps.
Yeah, so I created the empowerment cycle because I think oftentimes we can feel so powerless to life circumstances. Especially right now, I feel more than ever, with COVID and everything that hit, there were so many things that people felt out of control with in their lives, losing jobs, working from home, not being able to see friends and family the way that they want to, not being able to socialize. There's so much disempowerment that's happened over the last year. And I think there are a lot of things that we can experience in our life that feel out of our control. Divorce, loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of a home. There's so much that can happen that's unexpected. And so much that can happen in relationships, with friendships, that can be unexpected. And I noticed this pattern with people of it instills this fear of the future, this fear of things that might happen and might come because they experience so much pain in some of these impactful experiences. And so the empowerment cycle is a way to take back your power when you have really impactful experiences that happen in your human experience, which we all do. And the empowerment cycle really, the first step is bringing awareness to the facts. And what can happen is we can have all of these facts mixed with story, things that we made meaning of the facts. For for example, when I was in second grade, I was in a talent show and I sang a song, a Little Mermaid song, and I forgot the words. And those are the facts. I went and sat down and kids laughed. And those were the facts. I went home later and I went into my closet and I just cried and cried and cried because I was so embarrassed. And it goes back to that idea of the story then. What I made was people don't like me when I make mistakes, and I'm stupid. I looked stupid. And so those were the stories that I made up about the facts. And so oftentimes those can become really jumbled for us. And so if we can separate the two and say, okay, what were the actual facts of this story that happened? What were the things that took place? And I do have to say, the sooner you can do this in a situation, the better. Write it down, because the facts can change. I've had this happen in friendships where something impactful happens and then we don't talk about it for a long time. And then their story is very different than mine of what actually happened. So write down the facts according to you. So number one in the empowerment cycle is, what are the facts? Next is feelings. What are the feelings? What were the feelings that came from that experience? What were the ideas, the stories that you made up, that what do you feel like that meant about you in a negative way? What are the judgments you have of yourself? What are the judgments you fear other people are having about you because you've experienced this? Writing all those feelings out, identifying the stories and the feelings. There's something empowering about identifying and putting into words those things, because the stories actually grow when they're kept secret and when they're judged. And so our mind actually plays this game where when we're not consciously aware, those stories can be driving in the subconscious mind and running, but we don't even know it. We just know we're feeling anxiety or whatever. Like, for example, if I go karaoke, sometimes I still will feel that second grade anxiety.
Sure, definitely.
And I have to talk myself through it. I'm like, you know what? It's okay. That was second grade. It's okay.
Self-soothing is so important.
Yes, it's so important. So identifying the feelings, that would be the second thing. What was the meaning you made of it? What did you feel like it meant about you? And then challenging those ideas. Is it true that I'm not good enough? No, because I can give you several examples where I'm more than enough. So then I get to decide I get to decide where I put my energy. And feeding I'm not good enough takes so much energy. And I much rather create that space within myself of, it's okay, I'm more than enough. I'm more than enough in so many areas, and I'm doing so good at this human thing, right? So challenging those feelings, challenging those thoughts and ideas, and then, just like we're talking about self-soothing, self-compassion, it's really important. It's actually, to me, it's why it's step number 2 is because that is vital before you can go into finding insight. Oftentimes when we're talking with people about these really hard things, they go straight to solutions.
Right.
And when someone has not validated their own emotions in an experience, they will not be able to hear solutions. And for some people, it actually creates a distance in the conversation, because then they don't feel it's safe to feel their emotions.
Mm-hmm.
Well, many of us actually don't feel safe feeling our emotions in front of other people because of how we grew up. We grew up expressing, at least, for me, and don't get me wrong, our parents did the very best they knew how with what they had and what they've been taught. But many of us, when we felt emotions or expressed them, for example, if we were told no, we couldn't get a candy bar in the store, and we expressed disappointment through our tears and crying, we often were spanked and told to stop it. Or let's say we're at home and something happens where we wanted something so bad and we didn't get it, and I was crying or whatever, I would be sent to my room. So those kinds of patterns, we're often taught that it's not safe or okay to feel. And this is where we're actually having big issues now as adults, because when it's not okay to feel, but feeling is a natural part of the human experience, it becomes a really dangerous thing, because then we bottle things up and then we turn to addictions or other things to cope with the emotions, because it's not safe to feel those.
Absolutely.
So creating a space of safety for yourself to feel fully. The other thing that I want to mention here with these feelings is you can't selectively numb emotions. So if you're numbing the negative emotions in your life, if you're numbing your sadness, your any of the other emotions you're feeling or that are there, or avoiding them constantly, you will numb the joys, the goodness, the laughter, the love. You will numb all of it. And so, and I'm not saying that you just go full blown fire, what are they? Those big things that shoot out water. I'm having a hard time. Fire hydrant emotions. Yeah, fire hydrant of emotions. No, there's a time and a place. And it's okay to shelf things for a time. It's okay to say, you know what, I'm not in a place that I want to fully feel those because I'm working today. So I'm going to put it on the shelf. I'm going to do my thing, but then I'm going to set aside a time for 20 minutes to feel these emotions today. That's what I did at first when I was really scared of my emotions. I felt like I was going to lose myself in them and go crazy or get completely lost and overwhelmed with them. So setting a timer for those feelings really helped me. Say, okay, 20 minutes, I'm all in, feeling the emotions. After 20 minutes is up and I've validated myself, then I'm moving forward, which brings me to my next step in this empowerment cycle. It's finding insight. In every single thing we experience, we can learn about ourselves. We can learn empowering things about ourselves. Even the hardest of times, you can see and find that you're courageous, you're brave, you're more powerful than you thought, you're stronger than you think. There's so much goodness that you can find. Not to mention, some of, like, a really fun example is, I got divorced and separated in the last 2 years. And I started dating again. And the dating world in my mid-30s is a really interesting experience.
It's definitely different.
It is. And it's a whole different world. And so finding insight, on every date, finding insight of, oh my gosh, okay, I learned a little bit about myself. I don't like this. I do like this. And I actually started to put these lists together of my don't wants and do wants.
There you go. Yeah.
And it started to teach me, and I started to create this list of, okay, here's what I want in a partner. And, now I have a very clear list, and it feels so good. And so finding insight of life, instead of living in fear, find insights and be empowered from it. Find insights. I also went through a bankruptcy. I found great insight on things to do and things not to do. I learned such valuable lessons from that, because I went through the emotions, validated myself, and I was like, okay, let's break down what happened. How did I get there? How did I create that? And then how can I make sure that I don't do those things again? Let's guarantee my results. Let me learn and grow from it and move forward. So finding the golden nuggets, the sexual abuse, I can tell you right now, the greatest insight that I have from that is it put me on a track for my mission to coach, to step into personal development. It put me on track to fulfill what I came here to do. That's a huge gift.
Definitely.
And the ability to sit with somebody who's experienced that and to have so much empathy, where I can say, I know what that's like. I hear you. I see you. I remember that. And let me just love you for a minute. That's priceless connection for me. There's nothing like sitting with another person who's walked that journey and loving them and then helping them navigate. What's the next step? How do I move through that? It's one of the most beautiful experiences I can have now. And that's the insight that I've gained from those hard things in my life. And so it empowers me to move forward. How can I, what are the red flags that I know of when someone feels off to me? How can I honor that? That's been a huge thing for me. Like when I feel like I don't feel good about them, or what we deem creepy, maybe a creepy vibe.
Sure.
I respect that in myself, and I keep them at an arm's distance now. And those things are so powerful that it puts me in a space of power. I'm like, that's never going to happen again. I'm never going to be sexually assaulted or abused again. That will never happen, because I know the signs, I'm finding the insight, and I'm learning. And if it ever were to happen, I would do this exact same thing, and I'd empower myself even more. Right. And I know that there's perfection in all things that happen, and that it's for big picture, the greater good of my learning and growth. So finding insight, that's the second or the third thing. And then next, the last step. So there's 4 steps. So we did facts. What are the facts? What are the feelings? Find insight. And the last is future. Future. What do you want to experience? What do you want to have in your life? What does it look like to be more empowered in that area in which you had this fall or failure or struggle in? What do you want? And dream big and set small, baby step, realistic goals. Are the foundation of so much of even the US and how it's created was the American dream. These ideas of these dreams, these goals, these aspirations. And I think every single one of us, it's innate in many of us, to want something better, want more for our lives.
Right.
And fully enjoy our lives. Now, it doesn't mean that everyone has the same goals. Some people are like, I just want peace in my life. I just want to feel completely fulfilled in my life, and that's perfect. But what are your future goals? What are the things that you're committing to? With the financial mistakes that I made that led up to the bankruptcy, I now know in the future, okay, these are the things to avoid. These are the things I'm going to do now better to improve how I invest, where I put my money, what I'm doing. And it's been empowering. And what do I want? Well, I want a very abundant, free-flowing money future. That's what I'm really wanting to experience. And so getting really set in and focusing your emotions and thoughts on future and what you want. I think that's really important too, to stay empowered and to be clear on what you want, because what you focus on most in your life, in your thoughts and your ideas about your future, it grows. And we are all manifestors of the things we want in our life. And so that future becomes an important step to create what you want. You're in the driver's seat.
Absolutely.
You decide.
Yeah. That's
So that is the
amazing.
empowerment cycle.
I love that. And it really fits in with kind of like what I encourage people to do and what I myself like try to walk through when I notice negativity.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's really, really, that's a really helpful tool. I'm going to see if I can post a link to the graphic that you have, because I really,
Perfect.
really like that.
Thank you so much.
For last few questions, let's kind of turn a bit towards like relationships and how these tools can better your relationships, both emotional and sexual.
Yes.
How can the empowerment cycle and doing this work, being emotionally intelligent, how can these help to, I don't know, how can these help to grow your sexual and romantic life?
Yes, I think the sexual romantic life, I mean, just even those words, it's like that is all about emotions and mental processes. Every part of that. And yes, there's the physical aspect, but every one of us, in order to have that amazing intimacy and sex and amazing experiences, there's a level of emotions that you get to allow in your life. And so we have some really interesting things that we carry about sex. And, I'm always a big advocate in, looking at, what are the, if any, the negative ideas I carry about sex? And let's explore all of it. This aspect of sex, this aspect of sex. What are my judgments here? What are my judgments there? Looking at those things actually can allow us to work through the shame. There's so much shame culturally, religiously, around sex. And the statistics of people who've had negative sexual experiences are really high. And so clearly there's some things there that we do deserve to clean up. And as a culture, as a society and religions, and I had all those things. I had sexual abuse. I had a major religion that I was a part of, that I used to be a part of, that there was a lot of shame and there's a lot of secrecy about sex. And so what I had this opportunity to do is to really say, okay, what are these ideas that I carry? I mean, I remember 5 years into my marriage, still having sex and then the next day feeling guilty.
Yeah, I hear that's a common
crazy.
thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's crazy. And there's that cognitive dissonance that can be so hard. How do you work through that? Well, it goes back to emotions. It goes back to the training. What kind of things are running in your mind about sex? And this is where I think having these questions and doing writing on it and identifying those things with someone can be so helpful. And but I would say challenge all of your ideas about sex. Look at all the different judgments. I'll even go into things of like the different aspects of sex that maybe I judge as that's bad or whatever. And I'll write down my judgments on that and let go of that. And the thing that people often get scared of is like, well, but I don't want to do that. And that's not the point. The point is not that you do that.
Yeah.
The point is that you actually are becoming more neutral. And so when you're neutral about sex and different aspects of sex, you can make more authentic decisions about what you want to experience.
Absolutely. Because you don't have these preconceived notions.
Yes, exactly. And then you can have these experiences, that are new. You don't have the preconceived notions. You're open to trying new things. And then from there, it can be empowering to say, okay, now did I like that or did I not? Why did I like it? Why did I not like it? And then, do I still have judgments there? If you still have judgments there, letting those go. And there's so many ways to do that, but, a therapist or coach can help you with that. But letting those things go, learning how to do that. And then stepping into, okay, now what do you want? And that's what I would tell people is get clear. Write down your negative sexual experiences and then flip them. What's the opposite of that? Then you can know, okay, what do I want to have in sexual experiences? What do I want to experience? How do I want to feel? And it can be such a beautiful thing once you're clear on what you want. Again, and you do that inner work, the inner healing, you will get what you want. It will come to be. It has to, because you've done the inner healing and you're clear on what you want and you're focused. Doesn't mean you'll get it right away and it'll be the very first thing you experience next. No, because there might be some more healing that gets to be done, and that's okay. But be patient, stay committed to what you want. The other thing is when we numb our emotions, sex is such an emotional experience. It is so beautifully emotional. So when you numb your emotions, you're numbing you're capping off what kind of pleasure you can experience. And to me, I'm like, I want no cap, no cap on pleasure.
The limit
ever.
Does not exist.
No, I don't want to limit. I don't want to cap it. I want to experience it as long as possible and as beautiful as possible. And so, I've learned over the years several different things about sex. If emotions or energy in motion drives our thoughts and emotions, sex actually, in my world now, has become a creation tool. It not only can create babies, but this is a creation tool. Everything, if you look at anything in this world, look around you, doors, buildings, cars, tires, sidewalks, homes, everything that's ever been created has been fueled by emotion. It's an emotion first. It's an idea, a thought paired with an emotion that causes somebody to take action to create something. And so this is the most powerful emotion we can experience on the planet as humans. And if we can utilize that to create in our lives, to put towards the good things. So like, I'm such a visual person and intention. So I imagine that sexual energy coming up to my heart and meeting my thoughts of what I want in my life and going out and creating it energetically. Everything is created first energetically, spiritually, as a thought or idea before it comes into form physically. And so that shift for me has been so impactful. Sex has become so meaningful. And the best part is the more pleasure, the better. Because the more pleasure, the higher the emotions and the more I'm putting towards my goals, right? And for some people, this is maybe a whole new idea, but it has been so empowering for me as a woman to say, I'm using all of this amazing emotion and sexual energy for healing for my life, to better myself, and to put energy and emotion towards all the dreams that I want in my life, the things that I want. And since I started doing this, I feel like my goals are more solid, more consistent, and there's way more movement forward in a positive way. So, I don't know if that fully answers your question, but
it does. And I love that I actually wrote it down. I think I'm going to put it in the notes. It's a thought paired with an emotion that leads someone to create something.
Yes.
And that really does go for everything. I didn't even think about it that way, but it really does. And ultimately, the more in touch with yourself you are, the more in touch you're going to be, partnered.
Exactly.
With what you feel.
You're so spot on about that. I actually think that's such an important thing, knowing yourself. I'm a huge advocate of figuring things out for yourself and self-play and what do you like and what do you not like, and even masturbation. There's so much beauty in that and knowing yourself. And for me, those kinds of things, we put ourselves in a place where in some aspects where masturbation can be so demonized in a way of that's bad, it's evil. And there's so much shame around it. But I think that what's more weird is that we have to have another person to touch us in order for us to even experience pleasure. That's more weird to me.
When you put it that way, it is pretty weird.
Yes. Like, okay, I have to have another person to come and touch me in order for me to feel pleasure. No, like
Fuck
if I don't
that.
even know what brings me pleasure, how can I explain to this person what I want?
Right.
And so allowing yourself to explore, self-exploration, and remember, things can be done in shame, things can be done in beauty and in such great energy of self-love. So if you can remove the shame of especially around masturbation and self-exploration, that can be such a beautiful process of learning about yourself. And for me, that became empowering because then I knew how to explain to my partner how I wanted to be treated, how I wanted to experience things, what I liked, what I didn't like. Before I wasn't empowered because I didn't know. And I was just relying on him to figure it out. Poor man,
Right.
like poor guy, it's like, oh, I hope you figure it out. Oh, you didn't get it this time. Oh, not this time either. Oh, I don't know if we're ever going to get this. It's like, you have to figure me out. That's twisted.
Yeah. That's so true.
So if we're going to set ourselves up for success, I agree. You have to know yourself, figure those things out in a beautiful way. Let's let go of the shame around sex, around these topics. Let's talk more openly and beautifully about these things. And because it is a creation energy and you can utilize that to create in our lives, let's have a respect for it. Let's have a beautiful, let's hold it in a really beautiful, empowered space. That sex empowers our lives if we intentionally use it that way. And to me, when we start having conversations like that, it's going to change our world. And we all start doing that inner healing. Soon others are going to start catching on and the ripple effect will be profound. And can you imagine if everyone believed that they were a conscious, intentional creator in their life? Our world would be different. It'd be a different place.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Dana, where can people find you? Where can people follow you online?
Yes.
And do you have any resources that you want to share that you have?
Yes. So innerworldmovement.com is our website. You can find information about coaching, information about other podcasts we've done, other information. We'd have a book too, a spiritual book about spiritual transitions. That's another aspect of our coaching. That takes a lot of emotional education in order to do those things. And so you can find those things on innerworldmovement.com. You can find me on Instagram, innerworld.dana on Instagram, and follow me there. And right now we are just in process. We're beginning. This is the company, actually, we just started last year. And so we are in process. Yes. This has been a dream of mine for over a decade, and it became reality and took action last year, at the end of last year. And so it's a really big thing for us. You can follow us on Inner World Movement on Instagram. But we'll be posting content, information, things we're doing over over the next several years. We have big plans in place for lots of great content information. We're going to be starting a group coaching program here in the next few months. So you can find all of that information on innerworldmovement.com or Inner World Movement on Instagram, innerworld.dana. So those are the places you can find us. And we'll put more resources on there too of books we recommend and websites and things like that too. So it'll just be a great hub.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. This was an awesome conversation.
Oh, thank you so much, Rachel. Thank you for what you're doing to make a difference in the world and to have these conversations and to educate people. I know it takes courage to do this, and it takes your time and energy. And I want you to know that it does make a difference in the world. And I feel honored to be a part of this journey and to be playing a role just like you are. And thank you for the part that you're playing. I appreciate it.
Oh, thank you so much. And thank you to you too for everything that you do.
Thank you.
Well, everybody, this has been my conversation with Dana. I am your host, Rachel Dalton. This has been Wine, Dine, and 69, and let's keep talking.